Hey guys, this is Jaster, and before we get into the video here, just a quick couple of things. This is a completely new thing for us here on the channel, so if you do like what you're hearing and seeing here, please help us out here by giving a like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Mostly the comments part. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, and we'll do our best to adjust that as going forward, because I'm still learning this whole YouTube video process and things. So just have some patience, please. Just let us know how you feel about it, and we appreciate everything that you guys do here. Now let's go ahead and get on into tonight's episode. Alright, so we got ourselves something new going on here. We got a segment that I'd like to call 24-hour review, which is something I kind of cooked up in my weird transient time before I go to bed at night, where I need to play something at least 24 hours before I figure out a proper thought process on how this game works, my opinions on it, and that kind of thing. So the first video game we're going to cover in this 24-hour video review is Sailing Era. Now, the developer for this is GY Games, which this seems to be their first foray into gaming in general. It seems to be a Chinese developer, published by Billy Games, which they're known mostly for Azure Lane, but they've got over a dozen different releases in their portfolio. So, to get into it, Sailing Era is an action RPG based in the Age of Sail, all across the world. It's got pretty much the entire known world that we know of and all ports that were active during that time in this game. Now, what I've got going on here is some video gameplay of the game, so if it doesn't quite line up with what I've got going on here, I'm trying. I'll figure it out best I can. So, to get into the basics, you pick yourself one of 4 captains here. The one that I picked was Andrew, so most of the gameplay that you'll see in this review comes from Andrew's perspective. He's from Portugal, and he's this young man that wants to become a captain solely for the sake of exploring everything there is to explore. He's got some Monkey D. Luffy energy got going on here. So, whenever you get started in this game, you get one little ship, and you get taught a very basic tutorial about how trading works, how bounties work, how getting from place to place, supply consumption, how to adjust all that kind of thing. And to be fair, it is a text dump tutorial. This is a very text-based game. There's no real voice acting going on with it. And it reminds me a lot of older style games that used to come out in like the early 2000s. Like, if you want to get a very in-depth game when it comes to gameplay mechanics, this is more of a menu-based game. Like, the complexities of this game aren't in the direct action, and we'll get into that into a bit, because there is some complexity to this game that you might not necessarily know reading other reviews. So, going into the early game, you're going to want to try and find yourself a couple of ships, couple of characters in order to make them captains for your ship, because in this game you need actual named characters that you get in your travels in the story in order to captain ships. The regular run-of-the-mill guys you find at the tavern, even if they're hired fleet hands that are specialists in their trade, they won't work as captains. You got to find actual people, and then you got to level them up kind of in a Korean or Chinese style, like mobile leveling system, where you do it manually. You go in there, it doesn't kind of give a XP bar where as you gain XP everybody levels up. No, your fleet gains experience and you divvy out that experience amongst the crew members. So you start as in Portugal. You start in Lisbon with Andrew, and you end up making your way across North Africa, down into the Cape Horn area, all the way across into India for most of his Chapter 1, Chapter 2 stuff. And let me tell you, it ain't easy. So, this game's thing is, in the early game, you don't get a lot of very powerful ships. You get a lot of stuff that you might be able to make it, but there are a lot of bigger fish in the sea out there at that point in time, and they really want your booty cheeks. So, I would recommend, if you are wanting to go the combat route with getting new ships, getting new equipment, getting money, all that kind of stuff, to be very crafty. Like what I've noticed in combat is that the AI will prioritize you as the flagship over the other ships in your fleet if they are in the ability to attack you. So if you stay good with your positioning and you kite the enemies, it generally leaves a good open area for your people to attack and not get attacked back. Now, I will say, I would definitely recommend putting a captain on a ship. Now that helps you a little bit with the AI. So most of the early game, though, you're going to be wanting to trade stuff. You're going to be wanting to get an idea about how the economy works, where ports, like buying and selling to other ports to, learning about the prosperity mechanic, where a certain port for about a month or so will have boosted sales, but their prices for buying stuff will also be higher. So you'll end up going in here, and at this point in time, I think I've got the actual trading menu up in the video. You end up buying stuff from one trade center, taking it to another trade center, and selling it. So in this one, I think actually I've got an actual Commerce Guild contract, which is different, but similarly is very similar in operation. Basically, they give you a specific item that they want you to come and grab. You go find that item for the cheapest price you can. You bring it back. You get the maximum amount of profit. And the other big thing about these Commerce Guild contracts that you're going to want to keep an eye out for in the early game is that they are how you end up getting most of your blueprints to start making your own ships. And so you're not exactly spending a whole lot, because I would say they're probably about a quarter of the price of actually buying said ship. At least in the early game, that might max quite a bit. Like I said, I'm nearing about 40 hours in the game right now at this current moment of recording, and I've got 4 galleons in my fleet and an Arabian galley, and it's kind of scaling up okay. I would say that more than likely it's probably going to get a lot crazier the longer I go. I do have a couple of ships. Oop. Sorry, guys. The Shadow decided he wants to come in here and try and snatch the ravioli I got over here for dinner. So it does scale pretty decently, I would say, over time. Now, I would wait until maybe the late part of the early game to the mid game to really start testing your metal against other ships in combat, unless you find a stray patrol that definitely looks like you can take it, because you're going to have enough of a time trying to traverse these pirate waters before actually getting into combat, because there's definitely bigger ships out there that if they see you and you got some goods on you, you're going to see the game trying to roll them in counter odds, because gameplay performance wise there is a bit of a choppiness. It was a little bit in the beginning of this recording. Sometimes whenever it wants to roll encounters, it'll sit there and get a little choppy, and you might see that here or there. Now, let's kind of get back into a little bit different of a category here. Let's talk about the music. So, as far as music goes in this game, I would say it's much more of a peaceful type, chill kind of experience. I've only really experienced a more tense tone on the soundtrack whenever we're getting into battles, obviously. But even when you're getting into adverse wind conditions, stuff like that, you're kind of more of just hearing the weather than really getting into the actual tone of music for it. They let the ambience kind of drown everything else out. And then whenever you're just kind of chilling, going on your way, everything's a really nice, peaceful sound. There are different soundtracks and stuff kind of themed after different parts of the world, which I like. And there are a lot of different types of music. So, as far as music goes, I like it. I wasn't expecting a whole lot for the price point, but I was pleasantly surprised. So, to kind of get into questing and story progression. So, with this game, there's like a lot of action RPGs. We do have a whole lot of different stuff as far as main story quests, side quests, trading quests, bounty quests. There's a lot going on in this game as far as different stuff to do. Now, that all does revolve around the same general gameplay loop of you're sailing your ship around the world, going from port to port, or discovering certain things, or tracking down clues to certain hidden items, or going and fighting pirate ships and things like that, or discovering new trade routes. There are all things revolving around this world globe on the sea. And so it's not exactly the most complex thing whenever you're looking at it, but the complexity in this game that I do want to get into is the trading. So every port has a different thing that it likes to buy as far as culture, as far as goods, and they all have different times of economic depression and prosperity. The plague is a big thing during this time, and there's every variant in between to the state of a port. So whenever you're sailing in with a large amount of goods, it's nice to know, hey, which ports in the area that I'm wanting to trade to are better suited to sell than others. And you're really looking for these nice shiny things on the map here, like Nantes or Casablanca that I got going on. So whenever that comes up to there, we'll kind of figure that out. So whenever we get into it, I do want to say that this is probably the most complex part of the game when it comes to making money and going and finding these trade routes and getting everything going to establish a guild for yourself in a port, which allows you to upgrade your ports through trade, population, and tech, which allows you to unlock the new items that you need for your shipbuilding, for your items, for your characters, for expeditions. There isn't a whole expedition part of this game that kind of works like a hexadecimal Oregon Trail, almost, where you have to get yourself a bunch of items together that might be like an axe to help you cut down some trees you might find, or a pick to help you get a boulder that's in the way out of the way, or lanterns for a cave, all that kind of stuff. And you wander throughout different parts of the world to find different treasures, people, things like that. Now, I won't spoil who, but you do find multiple people in the story within Sailing Era during these expeditions. So definitely give them a try, because you will find yourself getting more characters, which is ultimately what you want. You don't want to be relying on the hired sailors for very long in the game if you can help it. You want to try to expand your crew through actual characters. That way you can start doing their quests, which opens up a whole new realm of possibilities there. And they're generally better trained than any hired sailor you can get, because the ones that do have a decent amount of levels are really expensive on the monthly salary. So, like I said, there is a decent amount of depth to this game, but it's more on the trading aspect of the game. Like if you're someone who might in fact like Eve, or if somebody like me who used to play naval action, this is a kind of game that you will like. But it is a single player game. That's something I do need to kind of lay out there. Sorry that it took me so long to kind of throw that one in there. Now, all in all, I will say that this game did surprise me quite a lot when it comes to quality and what I got it from a buddy, Archer here from the podcast, got it off a Humble Bundle, and was like, I think it's something he might like, so he just threw it at me, and I tried it one night, kind of bored, wanting to try a new game, and I have been sucked in ever since, and it's kind of crazy. So, would I recommend it? Yes, but important context for me as a gamer and how I like to do things and things that I kind of like at this point in my life. Like, if I really want to try an intense game, I have to really be setting some time aside to really get into it. This is a kind of game where I can kind of play it every night for a couple of hours, do some stuff in there, and work on it progressively, and it's not really affecting anything, and I can work on everything at my own pace. The game's tone is pretty chill, and so far I've kind of learned to respect the fact that it's not really trying to be much more than just a solid, simple action-adventure game set in a very real part of our history, something that I really like. I really like boats, which is probably another thing that really sucked me into this game. there's not a whole lot of really really competent boat games out there, especially with Skull and Bones going on and everybody complaining about that and everything. There's a whole hell of a lot going on in the boat gaming industry that's not necessarily great. And this is a nice little reprieve, a nice little oasis in the desert of games for anybody that might like something a little more casual, but still's got some boats. You still can do some boat combat, but you're mostly running around trading, being a explorer on the seas, doing everything that you can to try to further the Aegis sail in the world that you're living in, which I think was nice. Overall, GY Games, I think you guys did a good job. And from what it looks like, there have been DLCs for this game and further updates that don't exactly require DLC. Like Lisbon doesn't seem to be, to me, a starting port, which I could be completely wrong about that. All I know is that when I'm looking at the Steam community pages, I'm not seeing Lisbon on maps. I'm not seeing it on guides, really. So I don't know. It could be just a new type of port that they put in there and they gave it to Andrew as a starting point, because Seville basically has everything that Lisbon also has, and it's just right to the south. So to me, it kind of looks like they've been still adding stuff to the game, which is nice. And like I said, there's more to this game than I think just a 5-minute review might be able to show you. So this has been Jaster with KOR Live, and I appreciate everybody that stuck around to the end in order to listen to everything that I've got to say on this little bitty game called Sailing Era. If you liked everything that you hear, it's the obligatory, holy crap, you can tell I'm from the South, I can't talk for shit, like, comment, and subscribe portion of the video. We like to appreciate everybody for joining in and listening for tonight's episode and review in our new segment, 24-hour review. Now, y'all have a wonderful night, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.